When I quit my corporate job, I was so excited to start my own company and to do, what I do now. And it was so exhilarating and I couldn't wait. And I was like, like going nuts about it. So cool. And at the same time, I was dying. I felt so nervous. I was so scared. I was terrified. I was overwhelmed, and I'm pretty sure that you know exactly what I mean. We all have our own experiences of these moments when we are super excited and horribly terrified at the same time, right? And that is what it feels like when you take a leap, when you take a step into the unknown, and when you take risks in a way, high risks that are irreversible. Quitting my job was irreversible. Yes, I can find a new job. Maybe I could even go back to that same employer, but I lost my job by doing that, right? And I cannot undo that. And we all know it. We all know that feeling of taking that step, of making that decision or not making that decision because the terrifying fear is too big. Even though we're excited about it, we don't dare to do it because we are held back by the fear of what might happen, the fear of the unknown, the fear of taking the risk and potentially losing something that is important to us, right? So that is taking risk. That is what it means. It's dealing with the excitement and dealing with the fear at the same time. And that is exactly what I want to talk about today, because taking risks is so important and so beautiful and also so scary and sometimes completely unnecessary, right? And I want us to be risk takers and feel good when we take those risks. And to do that, as you know, I like to dissect a topic and really understand it and see like what's the ins and outs of it and what does it even mean? Like what does it mean to take a risk really? What is behind that concept? And then we kind of like puzzle it back together and understand how we can put ourselves in a position where we feel good doing it and where we are kind of prepared for the risks that we're taking. So welcome to the Healthy Underline podcast. My name is Lisa. I am a mindset and innovation coach for athletes and for athletic teams. I'm so excited that you're here on the Healthy Underline podcast. We talk about all things mindset, creativity, mental agility, dealing with setbacks, dealing with risks, innovating ourselves. And those are topics that are dear to my heart. Those are topics that I love to think about, talk about, and work with. And to me, they are a super important part of any athlete's career, because I really truly believe that we need to train our mind as we train our bodies. And we are just one being, and we don't just have a body, we also have a mind, and we also have a soul, by the way, but that's a topic for a different day, I think. And with this podcast, my mission is to kind of make those topics a little bit more approachable, a little bit more doable, more concrete, understandable for everyone, basically, who wants to learn more and wants to become a better athlete that way, by training our minds. So today, let's talk about taking risks. And why do we talk about taking risks? Like, why is it so important? And the thing is that taking risks basically just means that we do something where we step into unknown, as I said earlier, right? So a risk is, hold on, I wrote it down. The risk is taking an action without guaranteed success and a potential for rewards. But there's also a potential for discomfort or loss, right? That's the unknown. That's the lack of guarantee of success. It's that action that makes us basically go left or right. Like either we win or we lose, right? And there is a big reward and there is potentially a big discomfort or a big loss on the other side. And that is taking risks. It's the duality of reward versus discomfort. And I'm going to use discomfort over loss because I feel like it includes loss, but it also includes so much more. So it's excitement versus fear. It's the action that triggers both of those. That is taking a risk. And our feelings towards taking a particular risk basically is just showing us how confident we are that it is going to be successful rather than a discomfort or failure for us. And our confidence informs pretty much how risky we think a thing is. And it's not necessarily what is at stake. Sure, sometimes if something is like, it feels like, oh, it's a big risk because there's so much at stake. But if it was about that, we would never drive a car. We would never go out and be, a participant of any traffic situation, because we're risking our lives pretty much every time that we go outside, or every time that we sit in a car, or do anything traffic related. I don't know why I chose that example, but there it is, because it's so prevalent. It's like right outside our doors there is traffic, I guess, and it is risking your life. And what could be a higher stake than your life, your livelihood? So no, our assessment of a risk is not necessarily about what is at stake. It is about how confident we are that we turn out successful rather than losing it, right? So when I sit in a car, I am very confident that I'm going to reach my destination, in one piece, that I will be healthy and happy, and that nothing happens. I'm very confident about it. I don't have doubts, even though traffic accidents happen all the time, right? I could be more fearful, but I'm not. So if I am crossing a street, I am very confident that the cars will stop at the red light and that I can just safely cross the street as a pedestrian. And that's why it doesn't feel like a high risk to me in that moment, because of my confidence of the odds, sort of, between those two. So the risk is the confidence of success. And I think that's important to understand, because that puts risk-taking in a specific perspective, right? So confidence is basically just our belief in our abilities to do what we set out to do. Like, do I believe that I can do it? Do I believe that that I have the capabilities to do that? Then I'm very confident about that specific thing. We can have a belief, we can have a confidence about our environment. Do I believe that other cars will stop at a red light? I do, so I'm very confident in that situation. So understanding that risk-taking is highly linked with confidence, to me, it was a very liberating moment when I understood that link, because I can work with my confidence. I can increase my confidence if need be, right? So basically, our confidence is the antidote to the fear of taking a risk. Now, why is this so important? Why is it so important to athletes, or pretty much anyone, to take risks? And it's very simple. If we want to grow, if we want to develop, if we want to avoid standstill, we need to take risks, because risks, again, is a step into the unknown, right? Taking a risk is taking an action that is not guaranteed success. So if we want to grow, it means that we do something that we have never done before. So there is an uncertainty connected to it, and there is a likelihood that I will not succeed. So it is a risk. So every time when I do something new, every time when I do something in a different way, there is sort of a risk attached to it, right? So if I want to become better at something, if I want to succeed at something, I inevitably have to grow. And that means I inevitably have to take risks. And honestly, athletes training, that's exactly that, right? Like it's about growing. It's about growing into or developing into an athlete that is, successful, an athlete that can have sustainable success as well, right? Someone who is happy competing, someone who enjoys training and rehearsing and, doing all those drills and all of these things. And that means that that is what training is, right? Training is growth. It's very simply, often it's muscle growth. When we do strength training, it's muscle growth. If you do mindset training, it's growing mentally. And if you're doing anything, if you're learning a new playbook, if you're learning a new strategy, if you're learning a new move, that's all growth related, and that is all connected to a specific risk. Maybe it could be that you change your teams because you know that if you're in that specific team, there are better coaches and you get coached differently to, maybe reach your goal of whatever, playing in the nationals. And that is a risk, right? That is a step into the unknown. You don't know if you're going to be successful there or not because you haven't done it before. It's new. So yeah, as athletes, you need to take risks all the time. When you try out a new move, you don't know. When you are in a new venue, you don't know, So it's progress. Taking risk means progress, growth, pushing boundaries, having a competitive advantage. It's all connected with each other. And if you don't do it, what happens? You plateau. You cannot innovate because innovation inevitably means it's unknown, it's new, right? You will be eventually taken over by others, right? Because if they take risks and you don't, not all of them will fail and they will succeed eventually. So you will stay small, you will stay idle, and you will be just taken over. And if your goal is to be a good athlete or to be a competitive athlete, not taking risk basically means that you lost eventually, that you lose over time. So now that we understand that, how important it is to take risks and how inevitable it is to take a risk when you want to grow and when you want to make progress, let's take a look a bit at the how, because I dissected it, and that is usually all we need to then come up with strategies on how to improve a situation or make it more comfortable for us, make it easier for us. So if we want to feel better at taking risks, because it's important, because we want to progress and grow, we simply, quote unquote, simply need to look at those two elements. We need to look at the confidence versus the fear of failure. Confidence in our success versus fear of failure. That's it. And we can deal with both. We can build the confidence and we can manage the fear. So to build confidence, again, confidence is our belief in our capabilities to achieve what we set out to do. It's that simple. And if we want to increase that belief, if we want to strengthen that belief that we have in ourselves, we need to simply get better at what we do. We need to simply get into action. We need to train. We need to practice. And we need to rehearse and repeat things and get better at things, right? So maybe when we look at taking a risk, you don't want to do the thing, of taking the risk to be confident about it. But maybe you can do something that is similar to that, or do a tiny element of it, or do a baby step and start with that and take action that proves to yourself that you have the ability to do it, that you are capable. And that is what eventually will build your confidence in this context. So rehearse, set up an experiment for yourself, set up a safe environment for yourself to try something out, to, that mimics maybe the environment or the thing that you want to do, and allow yourself to fail without anything happening, and those things will make you feel more confident and more secure with yourself and with that specific thing. When we talk about managing fear of failure, so failure is basically us not meeting the expectations that we set out. That's it. We fail only when we expect it to win. If you don't expect to win, you don't fail. So, or to succeed, let me put it that way. So dealing with our expectations, adjusting with our expectations is one way to reframe failure. If sort of like what I said earlier, now when I talk about creating confidence, if you set yourself up for an experiment in a safe environment, you do not define failure for yourself because you don't expect success. You say, I'm experimenting, and we all know experiments fail. That's why it's an experiment, right? It's trying something out. It's trial and error. It's learning. It's getting insights, and it's, tinkering and exploring. So the pressure to succeed is very low in an experimental environment. And by doing that, you immediately adjusted your expectation towards success and failure. And by that, you kind of flip the script on failure, right? And fear is simply an emotional response, right? Fear is an emotion, and it's the specific emotion that we have, or the specific response that we get in the anticipation or in the awareness, both go, of any type of danger, any type of potential discomfort, right? That is when our body reacts with the fear emotion. And it's super important to have it. It's often what keeps us alive. It's helping, it's geared towards survival. So that is great. However, it often wants to avoid any uncertainty and unknown because that might lead into something dangerous, right? So often the unknown, intellectually we know it's actually not that dangerous. Like the worst case scenario is not going to be me dying. So understanding the potential discomfort or the anticipated danger helps to diminish our fear response. So understanding, or like first you investigate. You investigate what is the potential danger that I could encounter if it doesn't go well. If I risk it and I fail, what happens? Is it that I might potentially look dumb? Is it that I might lose my sponsors or my reputation is bruised? Is it risking my livelihood, right? Because there are lots of extreme sports out there that risk your livelihood, right? Is it physical danger? Is it the risk of injury, temporary or permanent injury? Like, what is the potential danger that is connected to it? And if the danger is looking dumb, that is something that we can deal with, right? That is something that we can work on, that we can flip. We can change that mindset. We can change that understanding of what it means to look dumb. We can change, the reputation thing as well. Those are dangers and fears that we can work with. If it's something bigger, if it's like a physical danger, we need to be a bit more careful about it. We need to show a little bit more discernment around taking that risk. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't take it. It just means that we need to be more careful about it. That's it, right? So managing fear of failure by understanding what it is, managing or building our confidence by understanding how to do it, by, taking action. We can do both at the same time. So we can work on them individually, but we can also work on them both simultaneously. One way of doing that is our mental awareness. That's kind of like woven into what I just mentioned. Like, be aware, like what happens in your mind? What are the reactions? What are your thoughts? What are your beliefs that are coming up? Like mental awareness or awareness of what is happening with your thoughts, with your emotions is key. That is the first step of understanding. And then whatever comes up, we start to debunk it. We start to flip it. Do I really look stupid? Do I really lose my reputation if it doesn't work out? Or do I just think that this is what happens? What do I base it on? Do I base it on my own experience? Do I base it on someone else's experiences? Are there maybe not examples in my own life or in someone else's lives where it didn't happen, even though, I think it might happen, but actually they did it and it didn't happen? Like, do whatever you can to flip it, to debunk it. And I've talked endlessly about these strategies in previous episodes. I'm going to link to some in today's show notes as well. And also, I have done episodes on confidence individually, and I have one episode on dealing with the fear of failure. So I'm also going to link to those in the show notes. But yeah, what else we can do? We can work on our growth mindset. Our growth mindset basically means that we believe in our own abilities, we believe that we can grow our abilities if we put our mind to it. So what else is there? There is tapping. Tapping is a mind-body technique. I am a tapping practitioner as well, and I love to tap on, any specific things that come up when we talk about this. So if you are facing a specific situation and it feels like taking a risk because you might lose your reputation, for example, if you mess up, if you lose that specific game, we can tap on that. That is something that we can reframe through tapping. There's something that we can reprogram and turn this limiting belief that you have into something that helps you, something that hypes you up, something that empowers you. And I upload tapping videos on my YouTube channel every Sunday, so you can try it out there with me, tap along with me, and get a first feel of what it could be like. And if anything comes up in the situation that you're in right now, like any risk that you're facing and you have limiting beliefs or thoughts around it coming up, and I haven't done a tapping video on it, let me know. I'd love to create a tapping video for your specific case and share it so that everyone else can benefit from it as well. So tapping is a tool that will allow us to build confidence and manage our fear of failure at the same time. So I highly recommend it around any type of risk taking. Okay, so now that we figured out how to feel more confident when taking risks, by working on our confidence, by working on our fear of failure, it's also important to understand when to take risks, because being a daredevil might be fun, but it's definitely not necessary. And understanding when it makes sense to take a risk is just as important as everything else, right? So if you are facing something and it seems risky, ask yourself, taking this risk, does that align with my goals? Like, is it going to get me closer to my dreams, to living my dream life, to becoming the version who I am working on being? Is it something that helps me? Like the example that I said earlier, when you switch teams, for example, to have access to different coaches or better coaches or, other resources, that is probably aligned with your goal to be a better player, be a better athlete, and maybe, take part in the nationals this year. And you won't be able to do that with the team that you're in right now. So yes, it's a risk, but it is very much aligned with your goals and your dreams. So in that case, it makes sense to take it. And the other thing is, take risks only when you're able to prepare for it. Because in moments of, like, when we're rushed, for example, or when we feel pressure, when we are in fear, or when our ego maybe influences our decision making, that is not the best moment to take a risk, because we want to take risks mindfully. We want to be able to prepare for taking that risk, whether that is physically, mentally, or both. It's probably both. And we want to practice for it. Like I said, when we want to build the confidence, maybe there is a way that we can practice the thing that we need to do to feel more confident about it. Or maybe it is that we need to tap on a couple of beliefs that are coming up that might actually hold us back. Like once we do it, those beliefs can come in the way and they can make us lose or fail the situation. And that is something that we could have prepared for, right? So I'm all for taking risks with a calm mind. Intentional risks, quote unquote calculated risks as they're called, but I don't think that's the right word because there's always so much unknown or so many unknown elements in taking a risk. I don't know how many calculations you can do. But yeah, I think those are the two most important questions you need to ask yourself. Is it aligned with my goals? Is it in line with my dreams? And am I in the right state right now to make that decision? Is my ego out of the way? Am I emotionally regulated and stable? Am I in no rush? And do I have time to prepare? You know? And yes, that is obviously in an ideal situation. I know life, doesn't always give us ideal situations. But if you have the chance to answer those questions and answer those questions both with yes, then it's an ideal case, at least in my beliefs, to consider taking that risk and consider moving forward. So if it jeopardizes your goals, it's a no-no. If you're emotionally unstable for whatever reason, it's a no-no. Get yourself in a different state to do that. So, I mean, I hinted at it. I talked about it. Success is not guaranteed. That's why it's a risk, right? So let me add a few words to what if it doesn't work out. Quite often it doesn't, right? That's what taking a risk means, that the odds are not always to success and we might not succeed. And being prepared for that, for the quote unquote failure, is also very important. And what we need in those moments is resilience. And resilience is basically our ability to bounce back from any type of setback, right? And failing is by default a type of setback. And I also recorded an entire episode on resilience and how to build resilience and train for resilience. And I really highly recommend that you listen to this episode. Again, I'll link it because it happens. It's normal that we fall on our face. It's normal that we mess up. It's normal and part of the process that we don't succeed at everything, and not everything turns into gold when we touch it. That is growth. That is learning. That is part of becoming a different version of who we are. Like, I mess up all the time, every day on different things. Sometimes it's tiny, sometimes it's big. And they're all part of my story. They're all those mess ups, all those mistakes are who I am, right? And they made me who I am. And I believe that they are important to my story, and I can deal with it. It's not pleasant. I'm not always happy when it happens, of course, but I also invested in my resilience, and I really urge you to do the same, to train your resilience so that when you face plants, you have the ability to get back up and learn from it and keep going. So I think it's the reframe of failure in our mind. It's embracing a growth mindset and understand that failure is, as uncomfortable as it is a lot of important information for us and a potential to come out the bigger person, the other end, and grow because of it and learn because of it. And I know those are platitudes and it's, but there is a truth in it. So understanding that and really training for it and preparing for failure is highly recommended whenever you take risks. And don't do it when it happened, ideally, prepare for it. And I'm not saying expect it to happen, but know that you're not gonna crack if it does. Know that you're not gonna break into two pieces and your life will end when you fail. And that is priceless. And again, that builds confidence as well. Confidence in knowing that you can handle it. So I think that's what I wanted to share when it comes to taking risks. I think taking risks is beautiful, scary, and exhilarating at the same time. So I highly recommend it. And I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you maybe learned something new, you got a new insight on something. And if you did, please let me know by subscribing to my channel or my podcast or both. And yeah, I wish that if you take anything away from this, is that you can definitely take risks. You can become a risk taker, but in the most confident and protected and secure kind of way if you allow yourself to become that person. Next week, we're going to talk about creativity and its connection to athletic growth. And as you know, I love talking about creativity, so that's going to be a really cool episode as well. Very excited about it. And until we see each other again, I wish you a beautiful rest of your day.